Oh, but if you're watching, I got myself up off the floor. We'll see how this goes. I'm going to film it from this part of my house because I'm alone. Somebody's sleeping and somebody's out at breakfast. We'll see. Hi, BookTube. It's Kim at Middle of the Book March. I just said that and I started saying Kay Becker's books. And I don't know why. This is like the third time I've done this. And the majority of the times I don't say anything to you. I cut it out. But whatever. It is what it is. Welcome to my bookish week. This is Saturday, March 6th. Why don't I ever know this? Why every Saturday? And I can't see a calendar from here. I think it's the 6th. Yeah, because I think I wrote 3-5 on all my paperwork yesterday at work. Oh well. I had a rip-roaring good bookish week. I finished 6 books. Don't be impressed, because I had a bunch of them going on at the same time, as many of us know who read that way. And so it's really satisfying when you finish a whole bunch in one week. They were on the go for a while, so it was just like the perfect storm of book completion, and it was so fun to do it. So 2 of them were BookTube Prize novels that I can't talk about. So at finishing those 2, I'm done with my round. I read Group G in fiction. So I'm not going to say what all the books are. If you're curious, if inquiring minds want to know, you can go on the website and look at the titles. Those are the books I read. So I'm going to tell you about 4 that I completed last week. And let's go. The first one I read on my Kindle, and I finished Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. Oh, this was so much fun to read. This is a historical romance set in the mid-1800s, around after the Civil War. It is the story of Hester, who is a worker on the Underground Railroad. She's 24. And then Galen, who is kind of a mastermind slave stealer who steals slaves out of slavery in order to free them. So he ends up injured, and she nurses him back to health, and he recuperates at her home. And there's, a kind of a secret. He's known throughout the countryside as Black Daniel. He is a notorious slave stealer. There's a bounty on his head. She has to hide him in her cellar. She's also part of an abolitionist group, and the entire town, the majority of the residents in the town, the leaders, are part of this abolitionist group, so they all work together. After he's recuperated, she realizes who he is, and the relationship ensues from there, because they are the 2 main characters in this romance, so it's those 2 who get together in a relationship. There's definitely a big secret that comes out about him. There is a twist at the end of the story, and it's a romance, so there's a lot of sex. It's pretty obvious they can't keep their hands off each other. But I'm like, there's a lot of sex, and it's not that it's embarrassing. It's just like, all right, I get it. You can't keep your hands off each other. It was exhausting. I mean, go and pick up a book or do something else, or go on a picnic. Do something different. But it was very good. It was a very good book. It was really fun to read. The strength it has going for it is the amount of history that it includes in the narrative. Jenkins puts in the events at Harper's Ferry. She puts in events of freeing slaves and their journey from slavery in the South to escape in the North, even as far as Canada. And so she talks a lot about that in the narrative, and it's really interesting and really educational. One of the weaknesses is there's quite a bit of easy wrap up, easy resolution to different conflicts in the story, a lot of stereotyping, but it's a romance novel, and it did exactly what it's supposed to do in its form. It provided a great story. It was very propulsive. The romance was really satisfying, and I really enjoyed myself as I was reading it. Okay, the second book I finished is a graphic memoir, and this is for one of my selections for supplementary reading for the These Truths Read Along, and it is George Takei's They Called Us Enemy. This is a graphic memoir of his experiences and his family's experiences in a Japanese internment camp during and after World War II. It's harrowing in its truth and reality. It's harrowing that our country imprisoned Japanese Americans, U.S.-born citizens of Japanese descent, and they gathered them, imprisoned them, and drove them, forced them into poverty and losing everything they owned. They lost family, they lost their homes, they lost their careers, they lost their dignity. And George Takei of Star Trek fame, Mr. Sulu, details his family's experiences. He was a young boy when they went into internment, and he talks a little bit towards the end of the book on what he goes on to do in his life, how he deals with the repercussions of his past, how he interacts with his father. He gets to a point where he's angry that his father let this happen to their family, but at the time, we know as adults that his father had no choice. And they finally come to a place where George realizes what his father went through. And then in George's adult life, we all know what he went on to accomplish and his famous role in Star Trek, his acting career. He has a Broadway career. He fights for LGBTQ rights and gay marriage, and just seems like a wonderful person. And it was really fascinating to learn of his background as a Japanese American and what his family endured. So this is very good. The one thing I'll say is it stays on a fairly superficial level. It's because it's short and it's a graphic memoir, so there's very little narrative. There is some that George does write some things in for us to know, for us to learn. But other than that, it's a great place to start, especially for students. This would be a great place to pick up this topic and start to learn about it. So it was good. The next book I finished was a buddy read with the wonderful Judy Brown, who we all love. And Judy has an Instagram. She's a commenter, a subscriber. She's a very good friend at this point. We've been in and are in a few reading groups together. And we read Redhead by the Side of the Road by Ann Tyler. This was a long-listed Booker Prize book last year. And I forget, how did we come to this, Judy? I think we I know. I saw she had put a picture on her Instagram. She was reading this for an in real life book club that she's in. And I said, "Oh, I have that. I would love to read it. Do you want to buddy read it?" So it ended up that I read it because I saw a picture on Judy's Instagram because she's reading it for a book group. And I thought I'd love to read something with Judy. So that's what we did. Redhead by the Side of the Road is the story of Micah Mortimer, and he lives in Baltimore. He's an interesting guy. This is a guy who craves order and predictability. He is a self-employed computer fixer, geeky IT guy. And so he's a guy that people call when they don't know how to fix their computers. Something isn't working, it crashed. And he goes to people's homes. He has a little tent that he puts on the top of his car. And that's what he does. And he works for himself. He doesn't have a boss. He doesn't have to go into an office. It's kind of like a whenever he feels like working kind of a gig. And he's also the manager of his apartment building, and he's the maintenance guy. And so he takes care of that. He has a very predictable, ordered life, and he likes it that way. He's got every day designated to clean a different part of his apartment. He goes jogging, and I told Judy that one of the things I love about reading a novel is coordinating the title with the importance in the narrative. What is the title? Why is the title important? For this particular book, it was a disappointment to me because when he's on his runs, he doesn't wear his glasses, so his vision is blurry. And he keeps passing this red fire hydrant on the side of the road. And every single time he says that he thinks it's a small child getting ready to run into the road. And he thinks it's a little redheaded child. And it's like, what's important about that? And why is that the title of the novel? Micah is a really lovable character, although he doesn't seem like it. He's very rigid and not very emotional, not a lot of nuance to him. But as we finish the book, and Judy and I were talking about this a lot, he seems to be a character with a social disorder or an autism spectrum disorder. But he is, he's very happy with the way things are going, we think. It talks a lot about his relationship with his girlfriend named Cass. They end up breaking up in the beginning of the book, and he kind of reevaluates his past with relationships. There is a surprise visitor that he gets to his apartment that completely upends his whole routine, so we learn about that. And he's a very sweet guy, and I wanted to keep reading. It's a very fast read. It's 200 some pages. Less than that. It's 178 pages. And my hardback is, has great big print and good sized margins. It's basically a novella, but it's fast, and I really enjoyed reading it. It's not the greatest novel. Her writing is good. It didn't blow me away. I thought there were a few points here and there. It's like, why does that matter? It would make a great play, and Judy and I talked about that too, because she's a fan of live theater, and I really do like theater as well. This would make a great play, and it was a good book. I thought it would also make a decent movie, kind of a feel-good. It reminded me of the Jack Nicholson movie, As Good as It Gets, with Helen Hunt, although Micah is a lot nicer and less curmudgeonly than the Jack Nicholson character. The fourth book I finished, I just read yesterday, and this is a middle grade book that I read for, basically because my daughter was assigned it to do a book project, and I wanted to read it in order to work on it with her. And this is
had a mental breakdown.
And my daughter had a mental breakdown because she's behind on the assignment, and we needed to work on it. So this is a book called Schooled by Gordon Korman, and it also fits in for middle grade March, so yay. But this is a book about a boy named Capricorn Anderson, and he's in 8th grade. His nickname is Cap. He lives on what is basically referred to as a hippie commune with his grandmother, who is his only caretaker. Her name is Rain. And the interesting thing about this commune is they are the only 2 people who are on it. So he has been raised, and she homeschools him she is the only person that he's ever known, and he doesn't know any other way of life, and he seems perfectly happy. He seems wonderfully happy, well-adjusted, sweet, intelligent. And then his grandmother falls out of a tree when she's trying to pick plums and breaks her hip. So she has to go into the hospital, and Cap has to go somewhere. So he ends up being placed with a social worker who grew up on that commune and remembers his grandmother. So he gets taken in by her and her teenage daughter. Her daughter is older. She's in high school. And there's a really interesting conflict dynamic there. So, Cap ends up going to a middle school with 1,100 kids, and he's never known anything different except living on a commune, living off the earth, being homeschooled. He doesn't know how to deal with money. He already drives, and his grandmother taught him to drive when he was 8, so he doesn't understand why he can't still keep driving. He doesn't have a clue how social interaction in middle school works. He is consistently bullied and lied to, and he is just that innocent and naive that he believes everything people tell him. And so the book is basically his arc about how he succeeds in that situation and what he goes through in that situation and how he grows and how he changes. A couple of things I will say. My daughter's in 8th grade, and this is great for a younger reader, younger than that. It's a little less mature than an 8th grade reading level. Of course, my daughter is at a much higher reading level, so it was a little tedious. The other thing is there's a lot of discussion in the book about bullying, and there's several instances where he writes about kids who have been bullied to the point of having a nervous breakdown or being hospitalized or having to move. And he's trying to do it in a funny way, but those are fairly serious subjects, and I'm not sure he does it in a sensitive enough way. It's just really not funny. And let's see, I don't remember, this book was published in 2007. So it's not really done well. There's a lot of, he does a lot of stereotyping. I don't really think middle schoolers talk this way, or at least they don't anymore. But for the most part, it was good. I really was looking forward to reading it and wanted to find out what happened to Cap and his grandmother. There's a great, I thought, a really revealing ending of what happens to them once she recovers, and it was good. So I'm gonna now, I know enough to be able to help my daughter with her book project. What am I currently reading? I started It's Up to the Women by Eleanor Roosevelt. I'm reading this as a nonfiction pick for my These Truths read-along for supplemental reading. I am reading Roots for March of the Mammoths by Alex Haley. I am reading the George Eliot Voice of a Century by Frederick R. Carl, which is my March selection for George Eliot 2021. I am reading Bluebird, Bluebird by Attica Locke. This is a buddy read with a bunch of our participants from our These Truths group, and we've got our check-in today. And, of course, These Truths by Jill Lepore. I'm almost done with the third section, and after this, April, May, June, that's it. We're going to finish that read-along. It'll be a year. There's 2 books that I'm going to fit in, hopefully this month. This is Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. This is for the Backlist, Barter Horde's Backlist Book Club. This is our March selection. And this novel is, I talked about this before, Now in November by Josephine Johnson. This won the Pulitzer Prize in 1936, 34, 35, 36, one of those years. And it's a novel about a family set in the Depression, 3 girls with a mom who has died. And I found this on Kelly's channel, Books I'm Not Reading, and she was glowing about it. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. I have a feeling I'm going to absolutely love it. That's it. I think that's it. I haven't even had breakfast yet. I've got my coffee. The kid's complaining because she hasn't eaten either, even though she's old enough to make her own little breakfast until I'm done. And that's about it for me. Let me know in the comments below if you have anything to say, if you have anything you want to talk about. Let me know what you're reading, if you've read any of the books I already discussed. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everybody.